What's up, YouTube? This is True Raw 4 TV. So, want to go ahead and do another one of these videos of the top playoff performers in the history of the NBA. This list is subjective. Your list will probably be very different from mine. Probably have different people, but it's all a good fun. All right. So, number 10, I had Larry Bird. Number 9, I had Kobe Bryant. At number 8, I had Shaquille O'Neal. At number 7, I have Tim Duncan. Now, look, this isn't an all-time player list. This is specifically for the playoffs. There could be some things going on in the regular season, which might push a player, in my opinion, higher overall than another player, and vice versa. So, but Tim Duncan was a constant for 19 years with the San Antonio Spurs, and his era bridged so many different periods when it comes to the Spurs. You know, Tim Duncan was drafted in 1997. He actually played the last year Michael Jordan played with the Chicago Bulls. Tim Duncan's first year with the Spurs and first year in the NBA, when he was incidentally Rookie of the Year, coincided with the second half of David Robinson's career. Now, from 1989 to 1996, David Robinson was at the peak of his powers. He was one of the most prolific centers in the NBA. Any given night, he'll give you 25 to 30 points. He'll give you 11 to 13 rebounds. He was a stat stuffer. He'd give you one, two, three steals a game, 4 or 5 blocks a game. His presence, his play on both ends of the court transformed the San Antonio Spurs in the post George Gervin era from a perennial cellar dweller to a powerhouse. But he didn't have around him a good enough supporting cast to win a championship. Now, they were good enough with his presence to be a playoff contending team that could go deep as far as the Western Conference Finals one year, but they just couldn't get over the hump. And then came, and then came Mud, and then came, I'm sorry, and then came Tim Duncan. And the rest is history. He came at the right time because David Robinson was never the same after that injury. And they were a true twin tower that dominated the league at that particular time when centers were still in their traditional roles, big men were still in their traditional roles, and they won the first championship in the post Jordan era. Although a lot of people put asterisks by it because it came in that 50-game season during the lockout. A lot of players were not in the best of shape, but whose fault is that? Um, the Spurs were tested. The Spurs were disciplined. They were tied with the best record in the league at that particular year, 37-13 with the Utah Jazz, and they won a championship, beating the New York Knicks in 5 games. Other championships would follow for Tim Duncan. 2003, in that particular finals, they beat the then New Jersey Nets 4 games to 2. This is the championship that many people say, hey, well, if 99 had an asterisk, this legitimizes us. Then 2 years later, they won their third title in a thrilling 7 game series against the Detroit Pistons. They win their third NBA championship. Their fourth came 2 years later after that when they swept the Cleveland Cavaliers in that finals. And I think that 2017 was probably their best overall team in the Duncan era. Then there was a gap. Then there was, speculation maybe their days as a championship quality team are done. You know, you saw the rise of the Lakers again after Kobe and Shaq split up. You saw teams like the Phoenix Suns rise with Steve Nash, Dallas Mavericks. Uh, so many people thought Phoenix the San Antonio's era was done, but it was not to be. In 2013, they made it back to the NBA Finals, only to lose that Game 6 behind Ray Allen's Miracle 3. The three that, as everybody likes to say, saved LeBron James' legacy. But the next year, the Spurs would be too much. Kawhi Leonard had made enough of a progress to be a force in 2014, and the Spurs won their last championship in the Tim Duncan era. So when you look at Tim Duncan, his era coincided with the second half of Dave Robinson's career, all of the career of Mon Ginobili and Tony Parker, and the beginning of the Kawhi Leonard era. He played 19 seasons. Every year that he played, his team went to the playoffs. Remarkable. He only missed the playoffs one time, and that was in 2000 when, even though the team qualified for the playoffs, he suffered a season-ending knee injury, I think a couple weeks before the playoffs. And as a consequence, the Spurs, who were the defending champion at that time, lost in the first round. I think they lost the first round to Phoenix Suns. Tim Duncan had a lot of mileage, man. He played 251 playoff games. Usually their playoff runs were very long. And as a consequence, like I said before, man, he Tim Duncan by 2013 had begun breaking down. And in the last few years, Tim Duncan was not the spotlight star anymore, but he still was a contributing factor. He wasn't a guy that's relegated to the 12th man on the bench, but he wasn't the same guy. But he still was effective. Throughout his career in playoffs, Tim Duncan averaged 20.6 points, 11.4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2.3 blocks, 50.1% shooting from the floor, 69% from the free throw line. In his prime, in his best years, from 97 to 2010, his playoff numbers improved: 23 points a game, 12.4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 2.6 blocks, 50% shooting from the floor, 68% from the free throw line. Tim Duncan is the all-time leader in blocks officially in playoff history with 576, and he's the only player to have over 500 blocks in his playoff career. Of course, there's always an asterisk with that. Number two is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 400 and I think 76 or something like that, 476, 486. But people have to remember, in the 237 playoff games that he played in, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 70, 71, 72, 73. I can't remember if they made the playoffs every one of those years, but in those years, blocks weren't counted. So if they were, he would be the all-time leader in blocks in playoffs. But then you have to take into account the prolific numbers of of Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, and possibly Nate Thurman. Definitely Bill Russell and Wilt. And we were having a different conversation, but blocks weren't counted then. Tim Duncan led the playoffs in blocks twice. 2002, he averaged a whopping 4.3 blocks during that playoff run. And in 2003, during their second championship run, Tim Duncan led the playoffs, averaging 3.3 blocks per game. Tim Duncan won 5 NBA championships. Altogether, he appeared in 6 NBA finals. Had it not been for Ray Allen hitting that miracle shot, Tim Duncan would have had a perfect 6-0 finals record. He was finals MVP 3 different times, I believe 1999, 2003, and 2005, I believe. He was finals MVP. Um, is there any knock on Tim Duncan? Well, I mean, the only thing I can think of is that his team never repeated or three-peated. That's a knock on him. Would they have been able to beat the 2000 Lakers had Tim Duncan never got hurt? I don't know about that. I don't know about that. The Lakers just seem like one of those teams at that point with Phil Jackson in the helm. That would have been a hell of a coaching matchup, though. Who knows? You never know. I think that team, 2000, I think they had Terry Porter. They added somebody else, but I think they lost Sean Elliott that year. I think that's when he had to have the kidney surgery. So, well, kidney transplant. So, I don't know. That would have been one hell of a matchup, though. I definitely know that if Tim Duncan wasn't hurt, he would have played, and he had played, they would have gotten out the first round. But anyway, that's the only knock I can really put on Tim is that his team never repeated. They never repeated, but they did win 5 championships, appeared in 6 finals in his career. So Tim Duncan, one of the top 10 playoff performers in history. Tell me what you guys think.